Well, thank you very much for joining us on the afternoon. Delighted to be here with you at SACS today and for Lilly to be a bronze sponsor this year. So my name is Laura Lane. I am part of our venture capital team and head up the team here in Europe. I'm also thrilled to be joined by a number of my Lilly colleagues, especially Birgit Stackel-Harman, who is part of our very important in our cardiometabolic therapeutic area, and actually a new recruit who's just joined us, Jan-Philipp Cruz, who's joined part of my team. And the plan today is to present a number of both traditional and new ways of working that we're working sort of at the moment at Lilly in order to sort of work with biotech and co-create together with the aim of leaving there plenty of time for Q&A with Birgit and myself at the end. So let me start with a few overview slides. So as many of you will be aware, Eli Lilly continues to be the #1 pharma company by market cap. And we are centered around 4 key therapeutic areas. The cardiometabolic area has been long-standing foundations at Lilly, and obviously many of you will know that it's incredibly important to us to this day. Other areas include immunology, oncology, and neuroscience, which is largely split into active areas in both neurodegeneration and pain. We also have an expanding effort around genetic medicines, and we see an increased number of partnerships and collaborations in those spaces. A couple of other stats to pick up on this slide is that over the last 10 years, we've seen about 20 medicines launched that have come from our external partners. And so we're especially excited to be here today in order to learn about the innovations you're all working on and what partnership opportunities there might be, and also how we might help. Come on in, there's plenty of space. So, moving on. To expand beyond our internal pipeline and serve additional unmet medical needs, like many pharma, we turn to external innovation to partner with the broader healthcare ecosystem. And we have now 2 methods of partnering. We have what you might call the traditional method, a search and evaluation, corporate business development team who work to strategically aligned areas within the therapeutic areas that I mentioned before. A much newer initiative is Catalyze 360. This is a holistic approach that strives to continuously meet the needs of early-stage biotechs. And the key pillars of this for us are venture capital through Lilly Ventures, world-class lab space through Lilly Gateway Labs, and an R&D capabilities effort through Explore R&D. Together, these complementary methods of business development and Catalyze 360 aim to give us a full set of tools in order to engage that sort of full early stage and later stage life science ecosystem. I'll talk about these in more later, but the aim is that everything here is very complementary, as you can see by the rotating arrows. So I wanted to briefly just touch on our philosophy to partnering. And these sort of 4 points really sum it up, with really our efforts to seek out transformational science that can bring breakthrough medical breakthroughs and new medicines to the market. And it's also about us at Lilly bringing our best-in-class capabilities to work with our partners. And we also now really want to work with you where you are, bringing flexibility to the partnering models and also the deal structures. And finally, we really want to do this together. Co-create together is the terminology that we use. So I'm going to spend a few moments on corporate business development activities, which will be very familiar to all of you. And this is really just to reiterate some of the key areas of interest that I mentioned earlier, plus also highlight the platform elements. I've already mentioned our efforts in genetic medicines, but of course we have whole divisions devoted in the areas of biologics and chemistry platforms. We have a new website actually for showcasing our strategic interests, and this can be found by just a quick search of Lilly Scientific Partnering. And you get a very comprehensive list of the different focus areas of the different therapeutic areas. It's a very helpful resource, or I can only just say, please come and talk to us. We'd love to speak with you. Again, this is not going to be a particular surprise to most people in the room, but we're very keen to meet our partners with flexible approaches to working together. And these are just some of the partnering models that you'll be familiar with and that we look to expand in the future as well. Also wanted to really sort of give a sense of the output of this effort in terms of external innovation and really emphasize that it's not just about talking about it, it is really genuinely about doing it. And we are consistently collaborating with the ecosystem. And as you can see from this slide, and I know the title says 50%, but if you do the maths, it's actually over 60% of our recent launches in the last 10 years have come from external partners. Actually, over the last 10 years, we've had more than 100 molecule or discovery deals that have been signed, and currently have over 80 active managed alliances, which is a very significant number. My final slide on the sort of corporate business development side is just to highlight some of the recent M&A activity. And as you can see, we had a very active 2023. It was pretty busy. And the last few years have also included a number of European company acquisitions as well, which is great to see. So moving on, I'm really excited to talk to you about the Lilly Catalyze 360 neuro initiative. So this was announced at JP Morgan in San Francisco in January of this year by our CEO, Dave Ricks, and is something that we've been developing for about the last 1 to 2 years. And the key really is, what can we do to work with biotech, which is beyond the sort of traditional ways of working? So a key area for us is that BD activities have largely been focused on those therapeutic areas that I've mentioned. And Catalyze 360 looks to really go well beyond that. We want to work with companies who are focused in cutting-edge areas of science, whatever that is, including in areas beyond the current reach of our therapeutic areas. You could consider this to be white or grey space for Lilly, and this could include new modalities, new disease spaces and states, new target areas. So working with us now can go beyond that alignment, sort of therapeutic area alignment that perhaps is more traditionally known. So what is Catalyze 360? I highlighted a little bit on this earlier. It's made up of 3 components. I'm going to talk at a high level here and then dive into each of these individually. But firstly, Lilly Ventures, this is the group that both Jan-Philipp and I are part of. This group identifies and evaluates which companies and funds we should be deploying capital to best help our partners. And it always starts with the science, like in many of the things that we do at Lilly. Lilly Gateway Labs is our approach to incubators and accelerators. And we're bringing companies together in curated communities and supporting them very strongly. Finally, the newest element is what we're calling Explore R&D. This is where we are deploying capabilities, or in other words, Lilly tools, technologies, and talent in order to help support companies advance their science and programs. We want companies to have the strongest possible molecules and data packages, and we believe that serves them, in the best possible way, as well as the industry as a whole, and especially the patients that should benefit from those medicines in the longer term. So I'm not going to go through every single number on this slide, but this slide looks at all of the pillars and the sort of impact that we're having by numbers at the moment. And there's just a few things to highlight. So Lilly Ventures is the element that's been around for the longest. It's been operating for about 2 decades. We make limited partner investments in multiple venture funds and also deploy capital into syndicated equity rounds. So we have about 2 billion under management in this approach, and we have over 40 portfolio companies, and it's steadily growing. Lilly Gateway Labs is much younger. It's been around for about 4.5 years, has had about 20 companies through the program, and is expanding at the moment, especially in the US, with 2 new sites in 2 new cities in 2024 alone. Explore R&D, as I mentioned, is the sort of new kid on the block. It's been around for about 18 months in its current sort of format, and it's also the area that's growing the most. So we signed about 13 deals in 23, and we're up to a sort of total tally of about 43 in total. So you can see how that year-on-year growth is quite significant. So a little bit more on Lilly Ventures. We are a group of scientists that are really looking for that tip of the spear breaking science. We have teams based in global innovation hotspots, both in Europe as well as in Boston and San Francisco. And the focus is really on the progression of early science, or perhaps to advance something that is maybe on the fringe of current therapeutic area strategy. We also have a model of limited partner investing, as I mentioned, and while the vast majority of our investments have been made in funds with biotechnology or therapeutics focus, we do have a presence in the tech and health tech spaces, as well as an impact investing program that supports underrepresented fund managers and also global health, which are both incredibly underserved. Lilly Gateway Labs. This is our version of incubators and accelerators. We currently have 4 sites. The 2 most established are both in San Francisco, and we recently, in early summer, opened a site in San Diego. We will actually soon transition this to our own site on the Torrey Pines campus, which I am told is beautiful, if anybody would like to go. And most recently, we've opened our Boston site, which is in the Seaport area, and you can see this beautiful cantilevered building here. 4 of the 12 floors are actually dedicated to Gateway Lab companies. It's very much a no strings attached models where we essentially provide wet lab space and office space. And the idea is to build a great community of entrepreneurs. And companies typically stay with us for about 4 years. And it works, I think, really well for companies that are perhaps not ready for their own building, but they are ready for their own space. And we can work with companies in whatever way they need. It's a very sort of high touch model. And it may be they want access to things that Lilly can provide, such as assays or perhaps expertise or funding. And once the companies are in, we really, really get to know them and help them in whatever they need to do to advance their science. And just to give you an idea, about 50% of them, when they start, are strategically aligned, and 50% have broader interests to our own. So lastly, explore R&D. This is really Lilly's effort to think about what else biotech could find useful. In a sense, it's about us helping to ensure that as entrepreneurs and innovators who develop molecules, these molecules can really make it as medicines. And for example, perhaps you need to think about making an antibody or an siRNA, or some support with immunogenicity, ADME or PK, support in honing a CMC process or formulation, for example, or maybe it's clinical design and execution. There are also a whole host of different things that are being brought into this realm of explore R&D. And the aim is that we really want to meet you where you need us. So we're excited to work with companies to deploy this, and by what we can hopefully do to help and support you. It's obviously in its infancy, but it's a strongly growing area, and we're really pleased to see the traction that we're getting. So I'm going to end before the Q&A with just a final slide to sort of say that I really wanted to emphasize that Catalyze 360 is very much designed with biotech in mind, choosing what you need support in, and Lilly supporting you to co-create that development journey. So I think we've got time for questions. Berg is going to join me on the stage. If we've got some extra BD, come join me. We can have a seat.
Thank you for the interesting overview. I have a question about the R&D capabilities. It sounds like a CDMO consultancy service compilation. What is like the business model that you provide services in exchange for money or equity or ownership or rights?
Yeah, so I think it's a real blend. So what we start off with is, we want the value to be retained by the biotech company. So it's not about using this approach to basically get a first right of refusal or some kind of option. It's much more towards the sort of fee-for-service model, but it's not necessarily with fees upfront in exactly the same way that you might be used to doing it with a service provider. I think the other thing is it's about often accessing things that we can access that is perhaps harder for a biotech. So we have slots already booked. We have, pretty big purchasing power. And so those are the sorts of things we can also bring to the table.
Hi, so we are a small startup based in Paris, France, building a platform, multi-omics platform on oncology. Like, is there anything that we can do with Eli Lilly? Is it only if you are based in the US, or like startups based in Europe also can have a chance to collaborate, and how that can be? Like, is it lab facility or investing, or is it like too early, or what kind of stage of investment you can interfere?
So on the investment side, I mean, with my ventures hat on, we invest in companies across the world. It starts at seed stage, probably not foundation. So we start very early, and I would say there's no, you don't have to be in the US to work with Lilly. I mean, we work with, science. Great science comes from all corners, and we're really working on with all companies in all corners of the world. I don't know, maybe Birgit, you can give a sense from, it's not obviously in oncology, but diabetes and the diversity of things that you see.
So yeah, let me introduce quickly myself. I belong to the more traditional part, business development, search and evaluation. I have more than 30 years experience in big pharma, and I in particular looking after cardiometabolic health and search evaluation efforts in that space. We do, and that's absolutely right, we are not limited by region or geography. We go around the globe, wherever the best opportunity is, we would like to meet them and see if we eventually, can help advancing this. We start with earlier types of opportunities like platforms, but in particular, in my case, we also love to see late preclinical or clinical assets where we eventually can, formulate a deal around in licensing or option or collaboration to bring this molecule forward. So this is where we think, at least from a therapeutic area perspective, we have deep expertise. We know exactly what the clinical plan would need to look like. We know exactly what the safety profile would ideally need to look like, and how it fits into the overall strategy.
And that's sort of why we developed this catalyzed model to really, obviously try and bridge that gap between when companies really get going and then perhaps when it's kind of ready for prime time with the therapeutic area, because we know there is a gap there, and people need money, people need support on assays, people need all kinds of things. And so that's sort of the concept.
Yeah, maybe I can just add to that, and that's certainly something that we see often. Biotech companies come with extremely great ideas forward, but sometimes they are lacking a certain expertise, or something is not just the way how we could quickly, from a big pharma perspective, pick it up and advance it further, like, for example, GP tox studies, things like that. And this is where I think we can provide great support in terms of advising, how would a GLP tox package need to look like in order to bring this, forward in quickly without any delays. Also in terms of ranking up pharma manufacturing capabilities, these types of things, which become critical as you advance a molecule from stage 2 to phase 3 clinical trials. So I think this is where we believe we can help and support biotech companies to really be best placed to speed up and bring the potential therapy very quickly to patients.
So looking at the chart you put up, 50%, 60%, at what stage do you call a drug internally developed? So if you've bought a company that's preclinical, does that become an internal product, or is that still an externally sourced product? And another question, just you all at once. If we look at that, the majority of the big sales generators were at the top. They're your own internally developed drugs. There was a couple of diabetes one, I think, Baqsimi and Jardiance, which is the. Is there something to read into that, or it's the return you're getting from the top versus the bottom? Want to talk around that?
I mean, I suppose good spot there, Sam. Always the analyst. So you're absolutely right. I think if you look at a lot of other pharma companies, their external innovation products, brought in from partnership, and we count whatever stage they came in. It's not that if they came in really early, we sort of claim them as our own. They are externally sourced. But yes, I think the Lilly developed products have sort of punched above their weight in recent times with sort of notable successes, especially in the cardiometabolic space. I think what this really we've talked about is that this gives us great scope to really grow the external innovation piece, and so actually really under pressure to do that, because that's one area that we can really scale and we can improve on. I mean, you've got a very therapeutic area comment to make, Birgit, but I think that's right.
How much non-competition is attached? I mean, it's obvious if someone benefits from all your infrastructure, you would love to commercialize with Lilly. But let's say you find 3 other companies and they have a strong sales force and global presence. You have developed everything towards launch. And then this biotech company says, I think they can make it bigger. Can they then escape and go with another partner?
I suppose what I would say is the Catalyze 360 model is typically working with quite early stage companies that are at the very latest in like early stage clinical development. So, you've got quite a long way to go to, later stage studies, launch, approval, those sorts of things. So, I mean, if we're going to be doing a later stage deal, which is very much Birgit's shop, they're different shaped deals to the ones that we do early stage. In the early stage, we don't really want to be restricting people because, again, it's really about trying to, float all boats at that point. Well, we would hope that working with companies at that stage, if they've had a really good experience, we would hope that they pick up the phone to us first. And so that, you know, becoming the partner of choice, you can sort of put it on a slide and you can talk about it. But if you actually work with people and people feel like they know you and like you and they had a great experience and you co-created something really, you know, really amazing together, then, you know, they might also feel that you're the best people to really handle that molecule and take it to its full potential. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.